Students, today we'll study the chapter The Proposal. This is the chapter 11 from your book The First Flight from your class 10 syllabus. It is written by Anton Chekhov. Now in this particular video, we are going to study about the author, the theme of the chapter, the message of the chapter, and the detailed explanation of this particular chapter. Now there are three major characters in the story. First is Ivan Vasilievich Lomov, and he is a neighbor of Stepan Chekhov, Stepanovich Chubukov. Stepan Stepanovich is the father of Natalia Stepanovna, and Ivan Vasilievich enters Stepan Stepanovich Chubukov's house to propose marriage to Natalia because she is also from a wealthy family and he is also from a wealthy family. They are neighbors as such. So he has come to offer to propose marriage to her, and the scene that goes around during the story, that was a humorous story and you'll definitely enjoy it. Now coming to knowing about the author, it is written by Anton Pavlovich Chekhov. He was a Russian playwright and a short story writer who is considered to be one of the greatest writers of short fiction in history. His career as a playwright produced 4 classics, and his best short stories are held in high esteem by writers and critics. Now, coming to knowing about the theme of the particular story, The Proposal, initially it was titled as a marriage proposal. It is a one-act play, a farce by the Russian short story writer and dramatist Anton Chekhov. It was written in the year 1988-89. It takes place on a country estate of Russia in the late 19th century. It is a highly humorous play which satirizes marriages of convenience that are solemnized without any feeling of love or affection between the partners. The play, with 3 quarrelsome characters, is replete with comic situations that generate a lot of humor. The characters are the members of the privileged class called the gentry. They are coming from the high class. But they remember, they always fight over each other. They are very quarrelsome in nature and often end up fighting over very trivial, piddly matters. Still, they remember the marriage proposal in the end, which will bestow monetary gains and finalize the wedding amidst the fighting. Anton Chekhov in this play very dexterously displays how the rich want to marry the children into other wealthy families with the aim of enhancing their wealth. Now coming to the detailed explanation, the curtain rises with Ivan Lomov Vasilievich, a businessman, entering his neighbor Stepan Chubukov's house, fully dressed up in his evening attire. Chubukov is surprised to see him so well dressed and asks him the occasion. Lomov wants to propose marriage to his daughter Natalia Stepanovna. Initially, Chubukov thought that probably Ivan has come to ask for money from him. He was thinking in his heart of hearts, if he asks him money, then I'm definitely not going to give it to him. But when Lomov tells Chubukov about the purpose of his visit, on being revealed that Lomov had come to ask for Chubukov's daughter's, Natalia's hand in marriage, Chubukov gets filled with excitement and leaves to call Natalia. He is certain that Natalia would readily give consent for the proposal. Lomov is a 35-year-old gentleman who suffers from palpitation. He gets upset very easily and doesn't sleep well. He thinks it is the best age for him to get married, and he is happy that he has his mind made up about Natalia. According to him, Natalia, although is average looking, but is a good housekeeper. However, when Natalia comes to the drawing room, she is surprised to see Lomov in a very formal dress, as she doesn't know the purpose of his visit. Her father had told her that some merchant was waiting to get his goods. After exchanging a few pleasantries, when Lomov is just on the verge of proposing to the girl, there crops up a controversy between the two of them regarding the ownership of a piece of land called OXEN meadows. Actually, while continuing to talk about his land, he somehow mentions about Oxen Meadows, which earlier was a disputed property but is now his. Natalia could not believe a word he was saying because she believes that Oxen Meadows belong to her family. Both of them enter into a heated discussion, a heated argument, and they start shouting at each other. Nomov mentioned that he has proof that the land belongs to him. He even highlights that once Oxen Meadows were a disputed property, but the issue had been resolved and they are now his. He goes back into its history and specifies that his aunt's grandmother had given the free usage of these meadows in perpetuity to the presence of her father's grandfather. According to him, it was given for 40 years and the peasants got in the habit of regarding it as their own. Natalia disagrees this. Since childhood, she has heard from her grandfather and great-grandfather that their land extended to the burnt marsh. She completely trusted them and doesn't see any point in arguing about its ownership. Somov insists on showing her the proof that the land belongs to him. Natalia, on the other hand, thinks of it as some kind of a joke because she believes the land is theirs since the past 300 years and now someone comes claiming it to be his property. Although the land isn't of much worth, only around 300 rubles, but Natalia is highly disappointed by the unfairness. Lomov begs Natalia to at least listen to what he is trying to say. He mentions that her great-grandfather's peasants used to bake bricks for his aunt's grandmother, and as he continued talking, he was interrupted by Natalia. Natalia expresses her reluctance on listening to any of his tales. She just knows one thing, the Oxen Meadows are hers. Now both of them are very adamant. We can see that both of them are very stubborn in nature and don't want to relent at all. They are totally uncompromising in nature. Lomov clarifies that even he doesn't value the Oxen Meadows much, but he is just being fair and acting on principle. He even offered to make a present of the meadows to her. Natalia, on the other hand, offers to make a present of them to him because they are actually hers. She is shocked at how he is offering to gift her property to her only. She mentions that he had been acting very strange. Until then, they thought of him as a friendly neighbor, but now he is not at all acting neighborly. Natalia's family offered him their threshing machine last year, even if it meant delaying their own process of threshing. But he, on the other hand, has been treating them very oddly. She feels that he is not showing due respect to them. Natalia feels the need to prove her ownership and thus decides on sending the grass cutters at the location the same day and cut the grass, proving that the land belongs to them. Lomov threatens that he will hit Natalia's mowers. Lomov gets aggressive and mentions in a high tone that the Oxen Meadows are his and his only. Both of them have forgotten about the proposal as such. Natalia asks Lomov to behave and refrain from shouting in her own house. In the meantime, Chubukov also makes his entry and joins the two in the argument. After a lot of accusations and mudslinging at each other's family, the flared-up Lomov becomes unwell and his heart starts palpitating dangerously. They shout and scream while Lomov suffers from extreme pounding of the heart, a side pull and a numb foot. He leaves the father and the daughter in a fit of temper. While speaking ill of him, Chubukov unintentionally reveals that Lomov had come with a marriage proposal for Natalia, which surprises Natalia and she immediately regrets sending him out. She tells her father to get back Lomov immediately and Chubukov curses him on being a father of a grown-up daughter. Now she is regretting the fact because when she comes to know that Lomov, had come to actually propose marriage to her, she regrets fighting with him. Both the father and the daughter accuse each other of driving Lomov out. The father runs after Lomov to get him back. This time when Lomov returns, Natalia is very sweet to Lomov, but she doesn't know how to make him propose to her. Fortunately, there is yet another argument between the two before the proposal. This time they started quarreling once again over the superiority over their respective dogs. Natalia finds fault with Lomov's dog, Kes. Kes is the name of Lomov's dog. And whereas Lomov feels that his dog is better than Chubukov's Squeezer, Squeezer is the name of Chubukov's and Natalia's dog. Lomov highlights that her Squeezer is an overshot, which means he's bad at hunting. He further states that Squeezer's lower jaw is smaller than the upper jaw. Natalia brags about her dog being a thoroughbred, the son of Harness and Chisels. This is the name of the parents of Squeezers. She says that Kes, on the other hand, is old and ugly as a worn-out cab horse. Lomov tells Natalia to stay quiet as he is not feeling well. Now again the argument arises and both of them forget about the proposal. Natalia continues arguing and refuses to stop until he accepts that her dog Squeezer is better than his guess. Both of them flare up once again and Chubukov joins them. They abuse and accuse each other repeatedly. Lomov, too frail to argue, falls into a chair, totally exhausted. Natalia, considering him to be dead, starts wailing. She suddenly remembers that Lomov had come to propose marriage to her. While panicking and crying, she asks her father to call a doctor. Chubukov too gets panicked and tries to get some water down his throat, but Lomov doesn't drink. He concludes that Lomov's dead and starts cursing himself. He considers himself the most unhappy, most unlucky person and wonders why he hasn't cut his throat or pulled a bullet into his brain yet. He suddenly notices that Lomov is moving and he asks him to drink some water. Chubukov is confused too, but after realizing that he is not dead, he puts Lomov's hand into his daughter's hand and gives consent for the wedding. Gives them his blessing and asks them to leave him in peace. Lomov, still unaware about his surrounding, asks Chubukov who is he asking him to marry. Natalia is happy that he is alive and hurriedly says that she is willing to marry him. When Lomov finally comes to his senses, he expresses his excitement and kisses Natalia's hands. Natalia, being childish as she is, manipulates him into accepting that Squeezer is better than Guess, but Lomov, being adamant as he is, refuses to accept it. Thus, once again, the quarreling continues. Basically, that is the end of the story. Coming to the message of the story, according to us, marriage is a very pious, pure bond between two individuals which should be based on mutual respect and love. We should not spoil the sacred relationship of marriage by quarreling and by being mean and selfish. Marriage is pious and there must be perfect accord between the partners who should be free from all prejudice and selfishness. Short temper, rage, intolerance, pride and unnecessary arguments ruin a relationship. So these should be controlled and kept under check. That is the end of the story. I hope you like this chapter. If you like it, do like, share or comment. Thank you. Happy learning.